I'm in Dr. Range's office, and it's the day before the operation, and he looks at my foot. He goes back and looks at the x-rays again. He comes back, and he says to me, Sister Phelon, Heavenly Father loves you. Your foot is healed. And I didn't need that operation. And I know I did those 130 initiatories, and that's what healed my foot. That was just the week before I was to go in the hospital and have that operated on. So those are just some of the miracles that have happened in our family, and I know there's got to be more. Now, Jim always wanted me to say, why do I love dogs so much? And I guess the problem is that I was never able to have any dogs when I was a kid. And here I was, an only child, a lonely, only child. Just think of how much I could have loved a dog. Just to have somebody around to play with and to be waiting for me when I came home from school and all those things. But no, I was never allowed to have a dog or a cat. Did get a fish once. But you can't really hug a fish. And so I wasn't really crazy about cats, but I always wanted a dog. And so the first thing that we did when we got married, and well, we were married for 2 years in Provo while I was working and he was going to school, so there was no hope for a dog there. But when we got back to Massachusetts, when Johnny, after Johnny was born, the next time he had a birthday, or maybe it was his second birthday, Granny Phelon gave him a beagle puppy. It was a thoroughbred beagle puppy, and it was so cute. And we named it Tippy. And of course, it had the long ears, not quite as long as a basset hound, but it had the long ears, and it had the hound howl and bark and all the rest. Well, we didn't ever have her spayed, and she became a wanderer. She was all over the town, and we couldn't keep her home. And she was just always gone. Of course, we didn't have a fenced yard. And so I could see that it was becoming a problem. And she became pregnant, and the big dog down the street got her pregnant, and she had 4 puppies. And one of them looked just like her, but it was as big, it was going to grow as big as the father. And that was Boots. We chose one of the 4 puppies and gave the rest of them away. So then we gave the mother away because we didn't want her to be teaching Boots to run around and wander the town, and we didn't want our children following her all over the town. So a man that was a hunter wanted her and wanted to take her pheasant hunting and things like that with him, and duck hunting. And so he gave her a good home, and we kept Boots. And Boots was born just a month after David was born. So David grew up with Boots, and all of your children, Boots was quite the family dog. And I remember one time he was sleeping at the bottom of the stairway from where you come downstairs from the bedrooms down to the living room, and you guys had thrown your baby blankets and stuff on top of him, and he was underneath the heap, and he was down there sleeping. And the next child coming down the stairs didn't know Boots was under there. It was Thomas. And he thought, oh, what a neat place. And so he jumped off the stairs and he jumped onto the landing, and Boots was under there sound asleep. Boots didn't know what hit him, and he jumped up and he bit Thomas right in the nose, put his teeth right through Thomas's nose. And it was so funny, but it was too bad for Thomas. But he was a really, really good dog, and he would follow you everywhere, and he was very loyal, very good dog. And he was 13 years old, I think he was, when he died, and he got hit out on the front road on Halloween night, hit by a car, and that was hard on us. But at that time, we already had JoJo. Now, how did we get JoJo? Well, John and I went on a vacation, a weekend to Cape Cod, have a little break. Must have been for our honeymoon, our anniversary or something. So we were down there, and we called home, and Thurza, who was one of my house helpers, she moved into the house and stayed there with all the kids, and I called her up and said, Thurza, how's it going? Well, good. We have a surprise for you. Oh, you do? I can't stand it. Tell me now. No, I think we'll wait till you get home. So we got home, And so when we get home, we find out we have a puppy at our house. Stephen had gone to a garage sale and bought a puppy for $1, put it in his bicycle basket, brought it home. So this puppy is white and black, long hair, and we didn't realize how big the puppy was going to get, but it was really big because it was probably a cross between a collie and a Labrador. And so we had family home evening, and this puppy was crying for its mother every night up in the catch-it-all room off the kitchen. It's sitting up there in the empty boxes and crying and crying. And we had the family home meeting, and I said, you know, Stephen, we're going to have to take a vote here because you were never given permission to get this puppy. So as a family, we're going to have to get rid of something. So we're going to vote whether we're going to get rid of the puppy or get rid of you. And when all the family voted to keep the puppy, then we had to reconsider. So then we ended up with 2 dogs. And Jojo was a case and a half. He would run down behind the school bus, and so would Boots. We lived on the top of the hill, and the bus went down the hill a mile or so down to the school, and the dogs would just chase the bus all the way down to the bottom of the hill to the school bus and wait for all the kids to get off the bus. And then the bus driver would load the dogs on the bus, bring them back up the hill, stop at the top of the hill, put the lights on, let 2 dogs get out of the bus, and cross the street, keep all the traffic behind them while the dogs got off the bus and came home. Talk about service. Oh, these little towns are great. And the dog was always wanting to go for a ride. And if we had the window open, the driveway went down like this and the front yard was up like this, and then it sloped down. And so the dog was smart enough that he would get up on the front yard and he'd see us coming. And if we had the window open, he'd stand up here and jump right through the window and be right here in the car, in the van, right next to us. Well, there was the day that I had washed the van and had the window so clean he thought the window was down and it wasn't. And so he comes flying off the lawn to jump in the window and bumps his head, bumps his nose against the glass window, whoop, just flops over on the ground. He thought it was open and it wasn't.
That was Jojo?
That was Jojo. And then he'd go downtown, and, Stephen would go down to see Richard Witcher and help him with his cows and stuff. So Jojo would go down the hill. Well, he was sitting on the porch of Gibbons' store one day when the people were coming in and going out, and Wilhelmina Tryon, our neighbor, went in there to buy something, and she got out and got in her pickup truck. Jojo was on the porch, and he recognized her. He just jumped right off the porch, right through the window, and sat right next to her in her truck, wanted her to take him home. And she did. He was so funny. And I just think dogs have a lot of personality, and they're so cute, so innocent, so loyal, so loving, so sweet. You can tell them your problems. They never give up your secrets. And they're always there for a hug or a kiss, or you can cry on them or anything else, and they'll always be your friend. And that's why I love dogs so much. So we had Jojo, and he came with us when we moved to Utah. And then Johnny was on his way to work one day, and Johnny had a black 65 Mustang. And of course Jojo jumps right in the window, jumps in with him, and he was going to be late for work, so he took him to work down to Watson's, and it was hot, like 100 degrees that day. And he left the window open and parked Jojo under a tree and left him there, and thought he'd come and get him out at lunch hour and bring him home. But when he came at lunch hour, Jojo had expired. He'd cooked him in the car. It was a black car which absorbed the heat, and even though the window was open, 100 degrees was just too much with his fur coat and everything. So the Watsons buried him in their yard, so we never did see Jojo again, but it was heartbreaking. Then we had this dog named Pooch that we had a big thunderstorm, and all of a sudden this stray dog comes running in our garage and sits there and shakes and shivers. And it was an English Spaniel, and he was brown and white and curly hair, and he was so cute. And so he wanted to stay, so we kept him, and his name was Pooch. Well, he got caught by the pound, and I had to go bail him out. and because he wandered around, and I'd be downtown going to the bank, and I'd come out and see him passing me on the sidewalk, and I couldn't figure that out. So he got picked up by the pound again, and we didn't have a fenced-in yard yet, and so the third time you get picked up by the pound, it's like $110 fine. And so I said, I just can't have this. I'll just go give him to the pound. So I gave him to the pound because we didn't have a way of controlling. But then we did get a fenced yard, and it was Thomas's turn to pick a dog. And he heard about a dog up in Highland, an Irish setter that somebody wanted to give away. That this Irish setter was chasing the sheep of the farmers up there and getting them all overheated, and it was not good for the sheep's health. They could die because of that, and so they wanted to get rid of this dog. And so Bob and Roberta Peterson knew about it, so we went up there to see the dog, and Thomas wanted that dog, and he was a couple of years old, and his name was Shane. So we brought him home, and he was a really good dog. Of course, Irish setters are hyper and very high-strung. But then the dentist that we were going to at the time, Brother Benyon, he had a thoroughbred Irish setter. He wanted to mate it with some Irish setter that was thoroughbred, and that was Shane. So he brought his dog over, and they ran around our yard for about a month, and then he took his dog home. Sure enough, she was going to have puppies, and it was Jim's turn to choose. So we went, of course, the man that owned the other dog got pick of the litter, supposed to be after us, but he had already taken his pick when we had arrived, and Jim was looking at, I don't know how many puppies, Jim, 5, 6, something, a number of puppies, and so he decided to give an intelligence test to this puppy to see what it would do. Now, what did you do, Jim?
What I did is I put them all in a box where they could barely see over when they were standing up. And then I took the mother and put the mother like 10 yards away and sat her down and saw which of the puppies was most determined to get out of the box and get with their mother. And so what happened is a couple of the puppies tried for a minute or two, and then they just laid down and gave up. But Scotty, which is the one I picked, was the only one that continually kept trying and never gave up. And that's when he was the only one left, and he just kept scratching and jumping, trying to get out to his mom. I knew that I had a winner there, so that's why I picked him.
So we had Shane and Scotty. They were quite the pair. Shane had a red nose, and Scotty had a black nose. And they were a couple of years apart, weren't they? About 4 years apart. Shane was probably 4 years older than Scotty. And at this point in time in my life, our family business, Tim Grandel, had gotten into Chapter 11 bankruptcy because the interest rates on homes had gone to 18%, and no one could qualify for a loan for a house with 18%. And the builders that had used all of our equipment to build those homes went bankrupt, and so we had $80,000 on the books that we couldn't collect. And so we didn't go down and out and stiff everybody. We had enough assets with our land and buildings and equipment and our home and everything that we could halt the interest charges on the equipment we were buying and everything by taking Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which means we will pay you back. We will give you a schedule of how we're going to pay you back, but you can't charge us interest anymore. Well, of course, at that point, when you take out Chapter 11, then your credit is nil. Anything that's delivered to Jim Grandel has to be paid for by cash when the guy brings it. All the credit cards were cut up. We had no credit cards. We had, our name was Mud. And so it was really a tough time. And John said, you've got to go out. You've always helped me working in the business. You've always done my bookkeeping and in the farm, did the quality control and everything on the blueberry sorting and all this stuff. You've always helped me. But now we need you to go out and get a job and bring money in outside of our business money. It's got to be foreign money coming into the home. So I went, here I'd been out of college for 25 years, at least. And I'd only gone 2 years to college, but I'd had a lot of business classes because I took the business courses in high school, and I took the home economics courses in college because I was headed towards being a dietitian. And so I went down and looked at the job market board down at the job service thing. I was looking at all of these things, and it says graveyard clerk at a 7-Eleven. And I thought, yeah, I bet I could do that. And it also said motel cleaner at L&L Motel. And I said, well, I bet I could do that. So I went to the 7-Eleven in Orem, and they told me that they'd already hired somebody. But they said, did you know that the 7-Eleven in Pleasant Grove was looking for a graveyard clerk? I said, no, that would even be better because I live in Pleasant Grove. So I went to the manager, little knowing how pleased he would be to find somebody that wanted to be a graveyard clerk. And I went to him and told him that I really wanted this job and I really wanted it badly and I wanted to do it. And he said he'd call me and he'd call my references or whatever else. And so then he called me the next day and told me he hired me. And I decided, well, 2 jobs are better than 1. So I went down to the L&L Motel and told them I wanted to clean their motel. And luckily for me, it was only 6 units. And so they said they wanted to hire me too. So they gave me a test when they wanted to see what kind of work I could do. So they gave me a room to go and clean and vacuum and everything. And they left money on the dresser. They left an expensive ring on the dresser and everything. And they had planted it there to see what I'd do. And I went in there and I cleaned the place and I dusted the place and I lifted up all this stuff and I put it right back down and came out and said to them, well, you know, how'd I do? They said, you passed the test, we want to hire you. And so I went to work at 11 o'clock at night and got off at 7 in the morning. And then I went down to the motel and I cleaned the motel from 8 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I came home and went to sleep until 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I got up and got dinner for the kids and helped them with their homework or whatever else, or went and saw their baseball game or their wrestling match or whatever else, and then I went to work at 11 o'clock at night again. And I know the Lord sustained me. I could not have done this on my own.
How long did you do it for?
I was a graveyard clerk for 6 months. And at that time, 7-Eleven decided that I had qualities that I could be a manager someday, so they sent me to Orem to be an assistant manager of the 7-Eleven store. So I went down to 800 West and 400 North in Orem, and I was the assistant manager there for 3 months. And then after I had worked for 7-Eleven for 9 months, they made me manager of the Pleasant Grove store, and I was manager of that store for 10 years. And they said that the average life expectancy of a 7-Eleven manager is 1.5 to 2.5 years. That they're all burned out, or they don't like the job, it's just too much, or whatever else. But anyway, I loved the job. It gave us wonderful insurance for our family. I took the best insurance that they had to offer. The best health insurance, and I took the dental insurance, and the vision insurance. I took it all, because I had a big family, and I thought this would be great. That they could be taken care of, because John, being self-employed, he didn't have any insurance. And it really saved our bacon, because I'd only worked there 3 years when John had to have a 7-artery bypass on his heart. And the rule was that 7-Eleven paid 80%, you paid 20%. But on one person, if you've paid $1,500 on that one person that year, they would pay 100% after you've paid the $1,500. Well, it didn't take long with John's help to get up to the $1,500. So he went and got his heart operation, and in 30 or 60 days, all the bills were paid. They had paid it off, which really was thousands and thousands of dollars. And it would have, 7-Eleven came through. The children got braces on their teeth, and they were able to this health insurance and this dental insurance. Another good thing.
Now you were saying though that you said, and I kind of cut you off. I'm sorry. That you did this. You were saying the Lord took care of you or something when you were working those two jobs.
I don't know how I have the physical strength to do that. He had to hold me up, really, because being the graveyard clerk and then going and cleaning the motels after meant that I was already working 14 hours. And
Plus all your family duties.
plus my church duties, my family duties, whatever else, that I had to have a lift the load, just like it says in the Bible when the Israelites were under the jurisdiction of the Egyptians, that Christ came and said that he would lift their burdens and they wouldn't feel it on their backs, because they were made to build those pyramids and things like that. I believe that he lifted my burdens, and I was able to do that. I really do. I don't see how I could have done it myself. But anyway, the nice thing about 7-Eleven was they let me hire my children. And there's a lot of companies that have this nepotism law that you can't hire relatives, that you just don't do that. But they said you can hire your children as long as the other employees in your store don't complain. If they complain that you're giving your children higher raises, or you're giving them better hours, better days on their shifts, things like this, if you're giving them preferential treatment to the disadvantage of the others, then we'll just have to call a halt to that. And so probably my children got the worst end of the deal. That they probably deserved a better raise and deserved better hours and working conditions, but I had to be sure that there weren't going to be any complaints, and so I probably was harder on them than I was on the regular employees. But it was wonderful. I didn't hire Johnny, but because he was in charge of crime prevention for the state of Utah, and he had this experience, then 7-Eleven wanted a crime prevention person for the state of Utah, and Johnny was showing that he wished to do something different than work for the state. So I said, well, why don't you go apply for that job? Well, my supervisor, when I asked him where John should go to apply for this, he told me where to have him go. And he said, you know, he'll never get hired. We're going to hire from within. They always do. I mean, this is a top-notch position. This is for the whole state of Utah. It's in Cal City. Well, Johnny got the job, and my supervisor could not believe it, that he was in charge of the whole state of Utah for crime prevention. And whenever one of the stores was robbed or anything, he had to be right there and had to talk to the employees and had to make sure the store was locked up, inventory taken, all this stuff. And then, of course, he did these secret runs on the employees. If you felt that you had an employee that was dishonest and pocketing money in your store, not ringing it up or something, well, John would get the message from the manager that he needed help. And so John would go grab a 12-pack, a suitcase full of Budweiser beer, which was like $18 a case. And then you have sales tax on top of that. And he'd come into some store in Salt Lake City and he'd grab a suitcase of beer and he'd throw a $20 bill on the counter and he'd say, I'm in a hurry, just keep the change and run out the door. And then he'd go out and sit in his car and he'd see if the clerk rung it up or they put the $20 in their pocket. And so he caught some dishonest clerks like that. That was part of his crime prevention work. And then too, he could tell if they were going to sell to somebody underage or something like this anyway. So he was involved in 7-Eleven. Now David never was. And Stephen was in his own business now. He decided to break away from temp rental and to be in his own excavation business. So he had no insurance. And 7-Eleven, when they came to a time when there were, Geneva Steel went down and a lot of people were out of work and there were a lot of high-tech people looking for something, then they would want to get them to come to work for them if they would. And so they said, we'll make a rule about our insurance that you only have to work enough time to cover your insurance premium. And then if you can earn enough money to pay your part of the premium, then you can be part-time. been other times when they insisted that you had to be more than 24 hours or more than 30 hours a week to be able to get the insurance. Well, at this particular time, Stephen needed the insurance, and they were only requiring that you get enough for the payments. So Stephen was my graveyard clerk every Tuesday night, once a week, and he would work in his excavation all day, go to me all night, work all night, go to work the next morning all day. But he could do that one day a week, and it provided the insurance for his family. They all got braces on their teeth. It covered all their health needs. It was great insurance, so that helped Stephen. Then Thomas was busy wrestling and going to college, and he wasn't able to be into 7-Eleven. But Jim came along, and he was working for me as my clerk at the store. And then the opportunity came that they needed a representative to go and distribute all of the movies to all of the stores in Utah. Was it more than Utah, Jim, at that time? For 7-Eleven? Just Utah for 7-Eleven. That to rotate the movies and to put up the advertisements and to check the sales and things like this of the movies. And so I said to Jim, why don't you go ahead and apply for that? And he was already working for 7-Eleven, part-time for me. And he did, and he got the job, which was a good job, but he did a lot of traveling all over the state of Utah. And then Paul. All of the children put their own way through college. They didn't take any government loans or anything like that. They paid their way. And Paul was looking for work to be able to help him with his college. And I hired Paul. And I could put him to work on his vacations when he came home from college. And I could help him. And so he worked for me also. Then there's Marianne. Marianne graduated from high school, and right away she came to work at my store to be the deli clerk that made the sandwiches. And I never did put Marianne on graveyard shift because I didn't really like to put girls on graveyard shift. I always tried to hire boys or men for that. So she worked as my deli person, and she had a scholarship to go to Dixie College on a volleyball scholarship. So when she went down to St. George, I went down to the St. George with her, and we approached the manager of the St. George 7-Eleven down there to see if we could transfer her down and have her work for him. And he agreed, and so she worked for him, but she did end up with graveyard shift and probably some other shifts. So she went to college for 2 years at Dixie and was on the volleyball team. She was the captain of the volleyball team. And she worked at 7-Eleven and went through college. She carried both of those full time. And then when she graduated from there, she came back for the summer, and I put her to work in my 7-Eleven. Then she went up to Utah State to go to college. We transferred her from 7-Eleven Pleasant Grove up to 7-Eleven Logan. So everywhere she went, her job went with her, which was just marvelous that she had this opportunity to still keep working for 7-Eleven wherever she went. So that was good for her. And then Daniel did not ever work for 7-Eleven. He always worked at Kim Brennan with his father. And Peter missed his mother, didn't see much of her, so he knew if he wanted to see his mother, he needed to go to work for 7-Eleven too, because that's the way he'd find her, is to go to work and be with her. So Peter became my graveyard clerk and sandwich maker and whatever else. So Peter worked for me, and Joe never did work for me. So 6 out of 10 worked in 7-Eleven jobs. So that was really a blessing. But getting back to this bankruptcy thing, John had his schedule all made out for his payments of all of the people that he owed. For the 10 years, he made all the payments, and everybody was paid off all of the money that we owed them. And 1 year later, John died. And I know the stress that he was under because of the financial trouble that we were in, knowing we had a big family to raise. Out of that 10 years we were making those payments, we had 2 missionaries out at the same time 3 times that we were trying to keep it all together. And besides doing 7-Eleven, I also managed apartment buildings and fourplexes actually. I had Nielsen's fourplexes, Richardson's fourplexes, and Kempy's fourplexes. And I probably did Nielsen's about 10 years and Richardson's about 6 years, and I did Kempy's for 20 years. And all of that helped to keep these children on their missions and help the family with the bills. And I think your father would never have died as early as he did if he hadn't been through all that stress. Stress can ruin your health. It weakens your immune system, and when your immune system is down, then you're susceptible to everything. And it was amazing when we were first married. He'd never spent a day in the hospital in his whole life. And the first time he'd ever had anything in the way of a medical problem was when he got pinched between two trucks on the farm. But one truck rolled back, the brake wasn't set, and it rolled back and caught him between the two trucks, and it cracked his pelvis. And so he was laid up. There's not much you can do about a cracked pelvis, but just let it heal. So he was in bed for, this is when he was French president, that he was laid up for about a week in bed, and he wasn't used to being sick or laid up or anything, but he was generally pretty healthy. But when we got into all of those financial problems, his health just went down the tubes. But he had a great father. He was a religious man, a good man. His father was no shining example for him. He had a religious mother and a mother that taught him well. And his father didn't even believe Christ was divine. He was just another man. And his father didn't teach him any moral principles or anything. His mother was a stalwart in the teaching of Philip and John. But John was a hard worker. He joined the church when he was 18 years old. And he and his mother joined, and his father and his brother never did. But he was a hard worker, and he was a spiritual man. He was an excellent missionary. He worked really, really hard on his mission. He thought that missionaries should work just as hard as farm boys, that they should put in 80 hours a week. What's this 40 hours a week thing, and then go sightseeing? He thought that was really a waste of the Lord's time. And so he was a very, very hardworking missionary. He was a great bishop. He loved to play pranks. I never knew when he was serious. He was always catching me in his tricks, and I was always gullible. I never knew when he was serious and when he was teasing me. For the whole 43 years we were married, I didn't ever know when he was serious. In fact, he told the nurses the day he was operated on, the day he died, he told the nurses that he was going to be playing third baseman on the Heavenly baseball team the next day. And I thought it was just another one of his jokes. But I found out just last month, when I went to National Transmission to get my car fixed, that the owner told me that his wife was on duty the day that John died. And she said that he told the whole hospital he was going to die that day. And I said, well, that's great news, because he never told any of his family that he was going to die that day. And they said they will never forget it, because he was there and he went and had that operation, and they told them all he was going to die that day, and he did. They could not believe that. And here it is 8 years later, and I just find that story out. It was just meant to be. But it was a shock to us, and I know you were out delivering movies for a different company all over 5 states, and we didn't even know where you were for a number of days before we could tell you that your father had died. So, it's been different, that's for sure. But I want you all to know that your father was a very good man, and you're very good children, because he taught you to work. And he instilled upon you the fact that it was important to do your church jobs, and important to be there, because he was always there. And you knew that he believed it, and he lived it, and he did it. And he had some strange friends. No lie. I mean, he picked up tramps, brought them home, picked them up off the highway, brought them home. We'd put them to bed and keep them a week or two or something, whatever it takes. he'd think that they needed a place to stay or something. We never knew who we were going to get. He'd just bring them home. And he'd pick, I mean, we told him it was dangerous to pick up hitchhikers. You just don't do that. But he did. And some of the people that he had for friends were, you know, down and outers, and they were looking to him for a handout, and he always had some kind of money to give to them and help them in their way because they were down and out, because he knew what it felt like to be down and out. And he was always helping people. In fact, one Christmas, a year or two after he died, I went out to the mailbox, and there was an envelope sitting in there, and it said Mrs. Phelon. And it was after the time that the mailman had gone, and, you know, and I went out to get the mail, and this envelope was sitting in there. And but I had already gotten the mail, because I don't remember why, but I went back out again, and there was this envelope sitting in there, and I took it in the house, and it was $800, and it said, I owe this to your husband. I have no clue who put that in the mailbox, but he had helped somebody in need, and they finally came to the place in their life where they could give it back, and he was gone, and they gave it to me. And I know there's hundreds out there that he's helped that I have no clue who they were, but that's okay. That's all right with me. If that's what he wanted to do with his money, then that's okay with me. If he was helping people in need. So somehow we've made it. Somehow we put food on the table. Somehow the missionaries came and went. Somehow the children got married. And they all got married in the temple. It took Stephen a year after his marriage to get married in the temple, but he made it. And we've got to always recognize the hand of God in our family and in our life. We've always got to give credit to Jesus Christ and to Heavenly Father for all of the things that we've been able to get through. And we must never forget it. That it's been with their help that we've been able to do it. Now, Jim, do you have any more questions?
Isn't there a story about when you and Dad were dating or something up the canyon and a car about hit one of you or something like that?
Oh, your father. Yes, we were engaged, and they had, well, we were in the Pioneer Ward, and they were having a ward picnic up there in the Canyon Glen. It was just below Bridal Bell Falls. And so you parked on one side of the street, and then you crossed the street and came over and went into Canyon Glen. I guess it was packed parking, and you had to park that way or something or another. So we were standing on the side of the road, going to go across the road to get into our car. And as we were standing by the side of the road, this car came by very fast, coming by in front of us, and clipped the pants of your father, swished the pants of your father as he went by. I don't know how he didn't get sucked in. I don't know how that happened. But his guardian angels had to be hanging on to him that day. That he just, well, he had baggier pants in those days, and he had cuffs on the bottom like this, but I couldn't believe it could get that close to him and knock him out. I thought that was really something else.
What about practical jokes he used to do to Grampy?
Oh, well, I don't know what he did to Grampy, but I do know something.
Didn't Grampy?
Grampy was.
Wasn't he digging a
Granny
hole?
Granny was in the hospital because she had had a nervous breakdown, and Grampy.
How did she have a nervous breakdown?
Well,
Just the stress
because
of the
her
farm.
husband expected her to work like a hired man,
Okay.
and she was only 5'1" and about 100-pound woman, and he required her to lift the apple boxes, which are 50 pounds, 5 high, because it hurt his back to stack them that high. So he told her she had to do it, and so she went out and picked out brush underneath the apple trees and just did everything there was to do around that farm. Plus, she'd have to come in the house, can the fruits and vegetables, and weed the garden, and wash the clothes, you know, do all the women's work and all the men's work too and everything. Well, she just got burned out and had a nervous breakdown, ended up in the hospital. So Philip was in school. He was 4 years older than John. Here's 3-year-old John that Grampy's got to take care of now. He's never taken care of him because Grampy always took care of everything. And so he had him out there with him while he was working, and he was digging the foundation for the footings of the cold storage. He was building a cold storage. And so I guess you dig a hole about like a 2-foot wide trench, and you're digging down to put in about 6 feet deep of cement or something like this for the building to sit on. And so Grampy was down in this trench, and it was a number of feet or so long, and he was shoveling the dirt out, digging it out. They didn't have track hoes and all of these things, or they couldn't afford them or something at that time. They're digging it by hand. And so John is up on the top, and Grampy's down in the ditch. And Grampy's shoveling the dirt out. Just about as fast as he's shoveling the dirt out, John is kicking the dirt in. And so he says, "John, cut it out." And so Grampy would be shoveling the dirt out, and then John would be kicking the dirt back in. So this happened 3 times. And so Grampy had it. And in this trench, you have a slope of dirt for you to go down in and to come out of while you're down in the trench. And so he grabbed a 2x4 as he was running out of this trench, coming out of there, 6-foot long 2x4, and he was just swinging it, and he was mad. And he was going to swat John with it. He would have knocked him clear over the house if he'd have hit him. But lucky for John, he ran to the house and got in the house and shut the door and got in there before his father got him. But, yeah, he did that to his father. And he was always playing tricks on me. And he was always chasing the children and stuff. And you'd be sitting by him in the car, and he'd slap you on the leg, and he'd say, "Well, how are you, old friend, old pal, old whatever else," and slap you and give you lots of slaps. And so then, when I'd be driving to church, then you guys are back there slapping each other on the leg and everything, and it starts a fight, and then we've got a big ruckus in the back of the van, and cut it out. Well, where did they learn this stuff? They learned it from their father. And another thing that was unusual, and I said no one can eat in the living room, but Father would never abide by those rules. So everybody wanted to know why Father could eat in the living room, but they couldn't. So figuring that an example could not be set, then everybody got to eat in the living room because I couldn't train Father. And
I remember they used to have family home evening, and they'd invite friends over, and they'd put the boxing gloves on. I was thinking it would be a nice, civil little fight, and it always end up in a massive free-for-all, and everybody's mad and throwing fists and punching, and I'm thinking, family home evening, we're trying to show these people what our church is all about, and here's 2 kids screaming and just throwing wild punches trying to kill each other.
well, but probably got all your anxieties out.
Never figured that one out, but
Oh, and he had his party games. He had his mongoose.
yeah.
He had
Jim
his
Donakis
mongoose.
with the socks, holy socks.
Yeah, he had the Holy Sauce game, and we had the one where you put them under the blanket, and you tell them that they have something on that they need to take off, and throw it out, let us have it. And they almost get down to their underwear, not realizing it's the blanket they need to take off. That's the only thing they've got on that they don't need. And then there's the one where you put 2 people under the blanket, and you tell them that somebody out in the outside circle is going to tap you on the head, and you have to guess who it is before you can get out of the blanket. But what you don't know is that the other guy under the blanket with you is the guy with the tin pan, the pie tin. And so he'll hit himself on the head, and then he'll guess, is it Jim? No. So then he'll whack the other guy, a good one, on the head. And that guy would guess somebody out in the circle, And this goes on for a long time before he realizes it's the guy underneath with him that's hitting him on the head. Oh, and then he has this game where you take a match and blacken the bottom of the cereal bowl. And you put water in the bowl and you give water to this other person in the bowl and you say, now you're going to see if you can copy everything that I do. And then he puts his finger in the bowl, then he runs it along the bottom and then he goes like this. And so you do it, but you don't realize that you get this black stuff on the bottom of your finger and you just mark it up your face. And everybody's laughing and you can't understand why they're laughing and you're just getting blacker and blacker. And
Right, I forgot about that game.
oh yeah, and then there's the intelligence game where you try to guess the things, and you have them blindfolded and you have a whole bunch of kitchen stuff, and you hand them an egg beater, what's this, and you hand them a spatula, what's this, and a fork, and all these things, and then previously you have taken an egg and you have put a hole in it and drained all the stuff out of the egg, and then you hand them a real egg, and you say, what's this? And they say it's an egg. And then you have this washcloth that's all wet with water, and it has the egg shell that's empty in your hand. And then you slap it on their head, and they feel all this stuff running down. It's really water, just running down their face. And they're sure they got egg yolk and everything coming over their head. It's just an egg shell with the water coming over their head. He had all kinds of games. Oh, and the 9 magazine game, and you could do it all kinds of different ways. And the game where you're standing on the ironing board and you're blindfolded and you're going up to heaven, and what's happening is that the people holding on the ironing board, they're bending down and you think you're going up because you got your hand on 2 people's shoulders, and they say, oh, and then they tip it and you think you're going to go down about a foot or 2 and break your leg, and you actually go down about an inch. Oh, what were some of the other games that we played?
They had one, the Holy Sock game.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Oh, it went like this. Beforehand, you get somebody to go in your bedroom and take off their socks and put on the socks that you give them. And we've cut holes in the socks. And so you pick a person that's wife can take a choke you home, but that will be effective. And so then you're all sitting in a circle and say, okay, now we're going to have all the men put all their shoes in the middle of the floor. And then when we count to 10, we're going to blow the whistle, and we're going to have the wives go in the shoe pile, and the ones that can get their husband's shoes and pick them out and put them back on their husband's feet first wins. And so we did this with Penny and Clyde Sumption. And
Very proper people.
Yeah, very proper. Well, he was the state patriarch, and they've never been able to have any children. They got married when they were 35 years old. I mean, they were, lots of fun. But New Englanders, and they tend to be reserved. And, well, Clyde was from the West, but Penny was this person from Maine, so we called her a maniac. But, so Clyde throws in one shoe, and he keeps his other foot behind him under his chair. Won't take his shoe off. Penny's looking over there, and she says, Clyde, you poor sport. Take off your shoe. No, I don't think I want it. Oh, come on, Clyde. Show him what a bad housekeeper I am. Show him all the holes in your socks. Of course, she's a meticulous housekeeper. No, I don't think I want to. Oh, Clyde, you do that or I'm going to come over there and take your shoe off. So he takes his shoe off, and his toes are sticking out the holes. I mean, they are big holes. She gasps and looks at that sock, and she just about passes out. Clyde, I can't believe it. Clyde, what are they going to think? What kind of housekeeper am I? It was just so funny. And then another one of the games that we had is that we would tell everybody that we were going to give them the name, give them an animal. And at the sound of, it's called the animal chorus. And so we're going to give everybody a name of an animal. And then when we blow the whistle or say go, then you should make the noise that animal makes, So, if you're a pig, you're supposed to say oink oink, and if you're a cow, you're supposed to say moo, and all this stuff. Well, he went around the whole circle and he told everybody, keep quiet, keep quiet, keep quiet, keep quiet. So we got Penny Sumption, and he said, jackass. So standing there, and he says, "Go!" And she goes, "Dee-ah, dee-ah, dee-ah." And she looks around and nobody's doing anything, and she's the only one. Oh, it was so funny. Oh, we had the craziest game. And I'm trying to think of another one. It was
We had
like,
a cross the scissors game.
oh,
I
yeah.
received these crossed, I passed them uncrossed across.
Yeah, right.
I remember that
And,
game.
and yeah, you have the scissors and you pass them across or uncrossed. And it really isn't the scissors, it's really your legs. The feet are
Yeah.
crossed or
Or your
uncrossed.
arms across there.
However you wish to do it. But that's a tricky one too. Then I was trying to remember another one. It was a choo-choo. And you were in a line and you had your hands on the guy ahead of you and you were going choo 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 like we'd go around the living room and the kitchen. And the joke was on somebody that was on the end of it, and I can't remember the punchline on that.
I don't remember that one either. I vaguely remember the choo-choo, but I don't remember why
I can't
or
remember.
how it worked.
It had something to do with the caboose, but I cannot remember how that one goes.
So now explain to me how the one goes where it says take it off. Oh, we had the one where they hold the pant leg and pour the water down your leg. You're measuring them for a coffin. You remember when they measured you for a coffin?
Yeah, but I can't remember how it goes.
They would like blindfold you and lay you on the ground and said, "We're going to do this coffin," and they'd measure your
And they
head,
say,
they'd
from
measure
your
your
elbow
arms,
to your knee, 12 inches.
and somebody'd be writing it
around
down.
your head is so many inches, like that.
And then your pant, and then you like your leg is this long, and then when they raise your leg, they pour a cup of water down your leg, and this guy would just leap. And the coffin game, I just remember someone would write, fictitiously write down all these measurements,
Yeah.
and the guy thought they were gonna put him in some
Measure for
coffin
coffin.
game, or something like that.
Yeah, and then they pour water down their
Yeah.
pants. Oh, I forgot about that one. Yeah, that was funny.
But on the one that says take it off, I don't remember how that works. Okay,
Okay,
two people are
you're,
under
you're in partnership.
there. Okay.
Okay, and the word is that the person that's going to be the one that you're going to call their name is going to be the one who speaks last before you go out of the room. So I say, okay, this is called mental telepathy or ESP or whatever you're going to call it. So Jim and I are going to play ESP. So you and I are standing in the middle of the circle. I say, okay, Jim, leave. So then you leave, and then somebody's going to say something to somebody, and I'm going to look at you, and you're going to look at me, and I'm going to wink or something that I know that you know that that's that last person. So then you're staying out in the kitchen, and we're in another room, and I say, okay, Jim, I want you to guess. Is this the person? Put my hands on, and you say, take them off. I say, is this the person? And you say, take them off, and I say, is this the person? And you say, take them off, and I say, okay, Jim. Here are I'm putting my hands on the person to stay. Who is it? And then you give the name of the person who spoke last before you went out of the room.
Okay. Now, what were you saying about one where you get all the way down to your underwear and you don't realize you're supposed to take off?
Okay, you have somebody under a blanket.
Okay.
You tell them to sit in the middle of the floor, and you put a blanket over them.
Okay.
You say, you have something on that you don't need. Take it off. And throw it out from under the blanket. And throw it out. Throw it out. Okay? So first you kiss you.
The guy under there has no idea what's going
No
on.
idea. No idea what's going on. So they throw out a shoe. No, that's not what you don't need. They throw out their belt. They throw out their shirt. Well, the big joke is that you send 2 or 3 people out. Okay? And so then, when they start taking off their clothes, and you say, well, we better stop right here. You better just come out. And we'll tell you, the thing you didn't need was the blanket. But you, on the side, before the party started, you have gotten somebody and put them in a bathing suit. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So then the last guy, you put under the blanket. I mean, you got people out here in another room.
So everybody under the blanket knows that they're in on this? Everybody that's under the blanket? Just the last man?
No. You send out 4 people, and
But-
none of them know what's going on.
But the one in the bathing suit does.
Yeah, he knows.
He's the last one.
He's the last one to come in.
Okay.
You know, so they come in, and some of them well, sometimes the girls will say, I just don't have anything else to give, throw out their earrings and socks and shoes and whatever else, and that's the end of it, whatever. But then some of them take out their pants out the shirts. I mean, you never know what you're gonna get. So, you have this last guy, and so everybody thinks that they're really cool because they know the answers, and he's the only one in the dark. So they come in, sit on the floor, and put the blanket over, and they say, "Okay, you've got something on that you don't need. There you go." So he picks up his shoe and throws it out. And then it's the next year. Then it's the belt and everything. So here comes his shirt. The next thing, here comes his pants. And the next thing, here comes his undershirt. And the next thing, here comes his shorts. And he says, "Oh, I know what it is. It's a blanket." And he throws it on. And they're screaming bloody murder because they think he's going to be naked. And he's there in his bathing suit.
Oh, that is good.
We had some fun games and parties, didn't we, though?
Yeah, we did.
I wish I could remember that choo-choo train thing.
Quite the entertainer, you and Dad.
Oh, yeah, we had fun. It was fun. We always like to have people over and have a good time.
How the games have changed. They just don't play those games anymore.
Peter called me up this last week and asked me to remember some of those games. I'm telling you. I can remember a lot of them, but I didn't remember the one where you pour the water down the pants, and I didn't remember, I still couldn't remember how to finish off that choo-choo train thing. That was one of the last ones that we learned, and I don't recall.
I wonder if there's something like they stuck something on, like the clothes on the back of their clothing or something. Wasn't there something too with their coats or something? Didn't we have a game or something where you take all their coats and something, or I can't remember.
I don't recall.
Maybe we just took their coats and put them on the bed when they came in or something.
Yeah, I don't think there was a game that had anything to do with that.
Where did you guys learn all these games? Just from other parties?
Yeah. We learned a lot of them in college.
One game that I thought was pretty funny, we used to play Steve. I think Steve and Martha showed us this game. Is you take a string and tie it off the back of your belt loop of your pants, and they'd have a carrot tied onto that, and you would run to the other end of the room against somebody else, and they'd have a 2-liter pop bottle with water in it, and you'd have to lower the carrot into the pop bottle opening. So you'd be sitting there squatting doing this and trying to get it in there, and the thing's just swinging and weaving, and everybody, there'd be 2 people on the ground, a little to the left, a little, it just, I mean, it was just embarrassing as heck, but that was one of the games I remember we played here when we got here.
Yeah. Well, when I first arrived in college, I got caught on a game. You remember in the newspaper how they said that this little girl died because their parents made her drink too much water? Well, I almost got to the part where I was going to die drinking water, I'll tell you, on this game. They had this pitcher full of water, 2-quart pitcher full of water, and they poured it in this glass. And they said, "Now you've got to do exactly everything that I do." So they poured the glass half full of water. Okay. I said, "Okay, I have this water." No, they said, "Now, if you do it right, you don't need to drink the water. But if you get it wrong, then you've got to drink the water." Okay. So the guy that knows the game, says, "I take a drink to Colonel Puff,
We played that.
and here's to Colonel Puff Puff." And then he puts the glass down. But what I didn't realize was that he went, "I take this drink for Colonel Puff." I never got the clearing of the throat.
Mm-hmm.
I could never get it right. I drank more than 1.5 quarts of water. I mean, I thought I was going to float out of there. And I don't know what. I was so gullible. And I never caught on to the fact that I should have said, "I take this drink for Colonel Puff." Colonel Puff Puff, and slap the grass 2 times on the counter, and then, put it down. They did enough things to it that you had to keep track of what you were saying, and what you were doing, and what you were tapping, and putting it down. I drank so much water, I thought I was going to explode. And it was only because I couldn't pick up on the very first thing that cleared his throat and said, "I take this drink." Colonel Puff.
Talk to Jeannie we have 2 minutes left and then that's done.
So tell me, Jeannie, did you get caught on that game?
I couldn't remember how to play it until you just said that. I I just remember drinking a lot of water, and I remember the words huff, puff, puff.
Yeah.
That's all I remember. So now I know how to play.
Well, we never
But I
played
should
that.
never have it.
We
So
never.
after a while.
Yeah, we never played that game back east with all of our friends because I felt I was just didn't like that game because I drank so much water and I didn't want to hurt somebody else. But who could be as gullible as I am? I don't know. But that little subtle clearing of their throat before they started, you know, I never dreamed that was part of it.
Yeah.
So too bad I have a cold. So, but too, I just want to say that I have been entirely blessed to have a strong, healthy body all of my life, as far as I'm concerned. Now, maybe somebody else wouldn't say that with my body, but with the 10 children, I have never had a day of morning sickness. Never threw up once. I was just very, very healthy all the time that I was carrying those children and having those children. Yes, labor was hard, but that's the way labor is. And, you know, as I'm older now, yes, I have arthritis. Yes, I have arthritis in my feet, in my lower back, and I've had operations. You know, I had vein stripping on my legs, had hernia in my groin, had a knee replacement in my knee. But they were things that needed doing, and I came out well. And generally speaking, I read the obituaries every day because that's my assignment from the Rich family, to catch any relatives of the Rich family and mail in the obituary to the historian. So I read them every day, and I read about all these people that are my age, and they have died in the care center, or they've died in their child's home, or something like this. And I'm 71 years old, and these people are 71 years old and dying in care places and things like this. And I think, oh, gee, this is really sad, you know. My mother died at 76. She went to sleep in her own bed and died. I think that she must have had a diabetic coma. I think that she became unfaithful in taking her insulin and things.
Do I need to record
And
this?
so I think that she probably died because of that. And then my father was 95.